when I was in high school, I had a job collecting trolleys at the local supermarket. And one rainy night, I came in and I went into the fruit and veg cool room and I grabbed a handful of grapes. And just as I was about to head back out, the store manager came over to me and said, "Oh, Neil, you weren't by any chance stealing some grapes in there, were you?" And as I kind of shrugged the raincoat across and pulled my hand up inside the sleeve, I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, that's good." And he talked a bit about margins. He talked a bit about ethics, and then he said, "Don't get too wet out there." And just as I was going to go, he leaned across and he actually patted me on the pocket, checking for grapes. And then he patted me down on the side pockets of the raincoat, just checking for grapes. And I just replied to him, "No, I'll be good." And I went out and grabbed some more trolleys. Now, I used that story once in a session at a company that was experiencing some pretty high-end corporate theft. They were getting laptops and digital cameras and leather jackets stolen. And so I got asked to set up a session, and I started the session with that story. And we talked through all of the kind of different ideas, but what was interesting was that after the session, like weeks and weeks after the session, people used to walk past me and they'd just pat me on the shirt and go, "Oh, you got any grapes in there, Neil?" And it was interesting how sticky that story was. So stories are really good like that. And the reason they're sticky is because of two things, I think. So one is about the emotional content that's in a story. And the second is about having a relevant context for your story. Often when people are trying to think of stories, though, they find it really hard to actually come up with good stories. So I want to give you a simple way to do that. So what you need is a piece of paper, or open yourself a Word document on your computer and just set it up with 3 columns. In the first column, just list down all the emotions that are relevant to what you're kind of wanting this story for. So in my case, I was looking for kind of guilty, perhaps a little bit embarrassed, perhaps worried about losing my job kind of thing. They were the emotions I was feeling. So I had them in the left-hand column. In the second column, I put down all the different contexts that were relevant to my story. So I kind of just, because it was a work situation, I went back through all of the jobs that I'd had over the years. And as I tried to feel the emotion of the first column, the kind of guilty, and as I went through the different contexts in the second column, I suddenly went, "Oh, there was that time when I was working at Woolies in the trolleys," and suddenly this story comes out to me. And this was a great way to actually find stories that have both that emotional content and a relevant context to what you're trying to do. So when you're starting with stories, it can be hard to get started, and you'll only have a few, but what I've found is it's actually a little bit like owning rabbits. You might only have a couple to start with, but if you hang on to them, they'll multiply quickly. So that's been 3 minutes, almost. In this last little bit, I want you to say, if you've taken 3 minutes to watch me so far, then take another 2 minutes to just actually open up a document, get a piece of paper, open up a note thing on your phone, and have a go at that process. And when you're done with that, we can get your stories working for you. I'm Neil von Heupt from The Learning Factor. Have a great day.